Wizards of the Coast has so many leaks, you would think that it's a sinking ship. And the wall's beating me to the jokes now. I'm not even needed. I'm just gonna let Mr. Wall take over, okay? I'm done. I'm obsolete. Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. There has been an old leaky deaky when it comes to Commander 2019. And since everybody is ravenous for details about what's going on, speculating about the different concepts, how many decks are we getting, or what tribes are they going to be based around? Are they even tribal? Because, each year we've had a different situation. At one point, they did 5 commander decks, then they shifted it up to 4. People think that tribal is incredibly likely. In fact, we were discussing this in a live stream yesterday about how, a lot of people like tribal, but it's not necessarily going to be tribal. Well, it turns out that a retailer somewhere in Europe that specifically deals with selling German language products has gone ahead and unintentionally spoiled some information about the commander decks here. They put up a posting already letting out information that hasn't been officially released. So let us take a look at that posting, my friends. It's from blackfire.eu. Okay, so we start out where it just obviously lists things like the brand, the product code, all these nice little details that make it seem very, very legitimate. The release date is listed as the 23rd of August of this year, and their order deadline is the end of July. So, we're coming right up on this. So the description, obviously, is where the juiciness is. It says, the Commander series returns with brand new ready-to-play decks for Magic's most popular multiplayer format. Each deck has a returning keyword ability as its main theme. The 4 featured abilities are Populate, Flashback, Morph, and Madness. The Commander series is a great entry point for players interested in the format. Additionally, all cards included will be legal in Legacy and Vintage, piquing the interest of fans of Eternal formats as well. Each deck contains 100 card Commander deck, 1 foil oversized card, 10 double-sided token cards, a deck storage box, a deck strategy insert, and Magic Quick Reference card. So here we go. On top of actually telling us about the specific ideas behind the decks, now we know, will you be getting 3 of the oversized foils representing your commanders? Because that's how it started. Originally, when they did the commander decks, they would give you 3 of these oversized foils. And I like oversized Magic cards. I like novelty things that are either bigger or smaller than they're supposed to be. So I liked the oversized foil cards. Obviously, the most interesting part of this information is the fact that these decks will not be tribal. They will be based specifically around different keyword abilities. Certain ones, in all honesty, I'm kind of surprised to see. Now, Populate is the one that probably needs the least explanation, but they have changed Populate as well. So it's a situation where you look at it and go, oh, okay, well, wait a minute. Actually, Populate's the token ability, isn't it? Populate is the token ability where you make extra copies of tokens. Never mind. I was actually getting Populate confused with Proliferate for a second. Still early for me. I'm still digesting the news, honestly. I went and looked at this and I'm like, okay, they're doing 3 ones that feel like they're kind of yanking from different places. Proliferate's already around, but it's not Proliferate. So forget what I was saying. Populate actually makes copies of token creatures. It is a Celestian ability originally. Now the question is, will this deck be like a multicolored deck with the Populate? Are they going to go the traditional white-green route with Populate? Or is it going to be like with 4 different decks? More than likely, we're not looking at monocolored decks because I couldn't really see them doing 4 different colors and leaving 1 color out in the cold. Plus, Commander is a play with a bunch of colors kind of format, play with a bunch of different goodness. So Populate's actually an ability that will make you extra token creatures, and we saw that in the Return to Ravnica block. That's where that Populate really was popping off. So that's one of the abilities. That's hilarious. When I read this originally, I was like, okay, proliferate and 3 older abilities. Seems like a weird choice considering how much proliferate has been in the new stuff. But completely wrong about that. So you've got populate, which makes extra token creatures. Flashback, which actually, like, there's 4 of the 4 abilities, there's 2 that really strike me as crazy choices. Flashback is a crazy choice. This is something from the old, like, Odyssey days, where basically Flashback allows you to play cards back from your graveyard. It's nice value, honestly. Flashback is nice value where you get a bonus ability from your cards where it's like, okay, we're going to get an extra casting. And Flashback can have all kinds of different variations of casting costs. So you can have Flashback where it's like, pay the same casting cost. Flashback, pay less. Flashback, pay life. Flashback is there's even cards that let you flashback by just tapping the creatures. Like, boom, I'm going to tap a couple creatures and flash the spell back. Interestingly enough, Flashback isn't always instant speed, which always felt a little weird about that ability. It's got flash in the name, and flash has a meaning in Magic the Gathering where you can put things out at instant speed. So you would think flashback is instant speed flash, but it's like, nope, it's flashback as in looking into your past. Sometimes Magic has weird choices with the names. It's like how in Magic Arena, they're gonna call the old school format in Magic Arena historic, but historic is actually newer than modern. So if you were to ask somebody, hey, when you look at these Magic cards and you categorize them into different groups, chronologically, what groups are, what order are they going to come in? You've got standard, you've got modern, you've got historic. Everybody is going to make historic at the end of the list and go, well, this has to be the oldest stuff. But that's not the case. So sometimes when you have a game as old as Magic the Gathering where things have been around for like 25 years and they've used different names throughout the ages, as it were, you end up with this kind of confusion. But overall, that's just a minor nitpick with Flashback, not a big deal. The next ability that a deck will be focused around after Flashback and Populate is Morph. And Morph is that funky ability where you actually put the card face down, and you pay 3 colors to put it face down. It counts as a 2/2 creature for as long as it's face down, and for its Morph cost, you can turn it face up. And Morph is an interesting beast, where they have done things like, okay, you know what, most morphs turn into creatures. Most morphs turn into creatures, but some of them actually turn into enchantments or lands. So you get that awesome moment when your opponent goes, I'm gonna play this spell to destroy your creature, and you're like, surprise, it's a land. So yeah, put that spell in the graveyard. It don't do nothing. And I'm genuinely curious, are they, because it's legendary and we're dealing with Morph, are they going to do a deck with Ixidor? Because Ixidor is like the Morph Lord from all the way back in the Onslaught days when Morph first showed up. Ixidor actually could sculpt his dreams into reality. And that's where Morph creatures came from. They were basically like part of his imagination. And they would come out as little kind of like crabby creatures, and their shells would break open and other things would be in them. So with the return of Morph, are we going to see Ixidor? Is Ixidor going to be a big deal? People are probably this is probably going to affect the market for cards like Dream Chisel, in all honesty. Because Dream Chisel lets you pay less to put out your Morph creatures. So that, honestly, with a hardcore Morph deck, that seems pretty cool. I'm curious to see how well they can support this concept based around these keywords, and how many new cards we're going to get with these keywords. And the last keyword, which is another one I'm actually surprised to see, is Madness. Madness is also one of the 2 that I think is like really, really weird. Madness basically is when you discard this card, you exile it and then can play it immediately. So, I mean, you don't really need to pay too much attention to the exile part, but basically the concept behind Madness is when you're going to discard this card, you get the opportunity to cast it for its Madness cost instead. And this normally the Madness cost is cheaper. I don't know what they're going to choose to do with Commander. Madness is a weird one. It's based around like the insanity of Chainer and the time of like the Cabal. It's from like the time of Torment, when everything was all twisted and vile, and Madness is just people literally going insane. But some mages learned how to harness madness and insanity magic and actually make their spells more powerful in terms of making them cheaper, things like that, through Madness. So I'm curious to see how they're going to develop the space of Madness, because Madness is not something that we've seen used a lot in Magic the Gathering. So for me, I'm actually more excited about these decks than I would be about tribal commander decks. Tribal commander decks are cool, but the problem with tribal commander decks is they have to hit the tribe that you're interested in. If they make a cat deck and you don't care about cats, whatever, right? Same goes for all kinds of things. If you're not a dragon fan, which, I mean, there's a lot of dragon fans, but if you're not a dragon fan, you're not going to care about the dragon decks. And the more they drill down, I mean, if they just came out every commander season, we're like, here's a new dragon deck, people are quickly going to be like, whatever, I got all the dragons I need, right? They're looking to make products that people will buy. So they want to make them appealing enough to be like, hey, you know, I know you play Commander, I know you have a bunch of these cards, but there's stuff in here for you. So I like Commander decks. Honestly, they're one of the places so far that Wizards of the Coast seems to be the least greedy. I mean, there are signs of some greediness where they've cut back the oversized foils, but generally Commander decks will have like 25, 30 rares in them, as well as like brand new cards. They usually always develop a new land for Commander decks for each of those. You get a Sol Ring in each deck. You get a lot of very solid cards because it's one-ofs as well. So you get a huge variety of cards. You're getting 100 different cards, well, with the exception of maybe some basic land overlap. Let's be real. I mean, they don't actually give you 100 different cards. You will have multiples of basic lands in these kind of decks. But overall, there's a massive amount of variety. Basing them around keyword abilities is interesting. This doesn't, as far as I recall, they haven't actually done that as like a gimmick for Commander yet. They've had a number of different gimmicks. One was like, oh, check it out, you can use Planeswalkers as your commanders. Oh, check it out, we've got partner commanders. Here's your tribal one. All that kind of stuff. I think they might have done multiple versions of tribal ones. I'm not 100%. But this keyword concept, very, very interesting. And really, that's all I have to say. There's been a leak. We got the information. This is something to speculate on, to get you salivating for what's coming, because honestly, spoiler season has to be starting soon. There's not much time left before they need people to start getting in pre-orders for this stuff, and it drops in like a month. So normally we start getting information pretty quickly about this kind of stuff. So I expect it to be coming down the pike. Anyways, let me know what you guys think. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members. Thanks very much for supporting my channel and what I do. Make sure to go and hang out with me on Twitch, Magic Historian. We've been streaming over there, having a fantastic time. And check out my second channel where I dropped an Aquaman review. It's beautiful. We're having a great time. And remember, my friends,
together we are the sixth color of magic.